It's good to see all of you here together again. I hope you've had a productive, illuminating, engaging, and challenging day, steeped in learning and opportunities for reflection. Our second general session speaker, Sir Kent Robinson.
Thank you, Jean. It's all true. I am tremendously distinguished. And it's a great privilege for you, actually, to have me here today. No, it's very nice of Jean to read out my entire resume. I'm familiar with it because I get my children to read it out every morning. And it's important, they should. It's important to humiliate your own children. Your own list of achievements. I published a book 10 years ago called Out of Our Minds, Learning to be Creative. And 2 years ago, the publisher contacted me and said, we'd like to do a new edition of this book. Would you like to make any changes to the text? Well, you know, it seemed to me improbable that it could be improved. It was, after all, a masterwork, you know, that I had composed myself. But I said I'd take a look at it. What I had in mind was a weekend with a spell check and a bottle of Jack Daniels. I actually rewrote the entire book from start to finish. It has brand new chapters, it has new examples. I've updated all the data in the book. It's effectively a brand new book. So if you bought the original edition of Out of Our Minds, I'm sorry. It's dreadful. You have to buy this new copy. But one of the reasons I decided that I needed to rewrite the book is because so much has happened, as Jean said, in the past 10 years. I mean, 10 years ago, there were no iPhones, no iPads, there were no social media, there were no networks of the sort that we've now come to take for granted. I mean, 10 years ago there was no Twitter, no Facebook, no Pinterest. I mean, 10 years ago people didn't tweet, did they? I mean, if they did, they were discouraged. People would say, I'm sorry, what was that? Do you mind not doing that? Would you mind stepping outside if you're going to do this again? But now we have to tweet every day, otherwise people think you've gone off the social grid. Technology has changed everything. The other big factor is population growth. The world has doubled in population in the past 30 years. There are now 7.5 billion people on the planet. And that's more people on the planet than any time in the history of humanity. And we're heading for 9 billion by the middle of the century. 10 probably by the end of it. There was a fantastic program on the BBC a couple of years ago called How Many People Can Live on Earth? And it was about how many people can live on Earth. It was a Canadian production, I think. They're just very good at titles in Canada. But they came to this conclusion that if everybody on Earth consumed at the same rate as the average person in India, the Earth could sustain a maximum population, that's consumption of food, fuel, water and the rest, the Earth could sustain a maximum population of 15 billion people. But they said if everybody on the Earth consumed at the same rate as the average person in North America, the Earth could sustain a maximum population of 1.5 billion. So the population is currently 7.5 billion, so if we all behave as we do in India, the Earth could sustain, well, we're about halfway to the maximum population we could sustain. But if everybody on the Earth wanted to consume as we do here in America, we would need another 4 more planets by the middle of the century to make it feasible. We're at 7.5 billion now, and we could only sustain, on our basis, 1.5 billion. This is why H.G. Wells, in the early part of the 20th century, said that civilization is a race between education and catastrophe. And I think that's right. Education is the way in which we dig deep into our own perspectives. It's how we discover and unearth our own talents, our course in life. But it's also how we meet our collective interests. Well, there are four, as I see it, with SAFE. The first is economic. We expect education, do we not, to facilitate the growth and sustainability of our economies. The problem is the current system was designed for the Industrial Revolution, not the current one. And you see that in all the various ways in which education is being carried out. A second is that life is inherently diverse. And thirdly, that life is not linear, it's organic. And our current systems of education were designed for other times and for other purposes. And the system itself now, I think, is hampering the growth and development of our children and misunderstanding the real nature of teaching and learning. I don't say this in criticism of teachers or in criticism of schools. I'm really commenting on the dominant culture of education in which we all have to labour.